Marco, now that we are real content creators,
Are
we have
we?
to. Well, I think so, right? You made a few videos. You're a real content creator. I think we have to give the people what they want, right? I think that's the smart thing to do, right? And we got this comment from No Name to Fame. How about a top five most overhyped releases? And he goes on to answer our question from the video. I've only been collecting it since last summer, but so far my worst pickups have been Sideshow Blondie, Justice League Superman, Wonder Woman 84, Back to the Future Marty McFly. Nothing really wrong with those. I just ended up selling them as I wanted to keep a limited focused collection. And I thought it would be difficult to do an overhyped video. I think you have to keep in mind when you watch this is very subjective. These are just our personal opinions. It's kind of tough to gauge the quantity of overhypeness. So
There's
I
people that are ready to be pissed off by
yeah,
this, right?
get your
Like you have a
keyboards
different
ready.
opinion than me, so
Yeah, so mine are not in any sort of order, and Marco, I didn't really put yours in any order, so we'll just go through them and
I thought you were gonna
we'll
say I
share
just didn't
our.
put yours in general, but
No, I did because you sent me the holographic images and it burned my corneas. So for my first pick, we are going with the Hot Toys Rogue One Vader.
how dare you?
Now, that's very controversial. I've seen no less than like a half dozen collectors tell me that this is their all-time grail. And I was fortunate to own this when it first came out. And I think some of the problems that I had with this initially, I think aren't as bad now, right? Because he was huge. He was super huge. And at first I thought, well, when doing this video, I was like, well, maybe Spencer Wilding, who was in the suit in Rogue One, was way taller than David Prowse. But no, they're the same height. And so when you look at him compared to the old A New Hope Vader, he is like, you know, not significantly taller, but he certainly is like taller. And
You could
it
tell the difference. I
always,
didn't realize there was such a difference, honestly.
yeah, it always bothered me. Now, I say that it's not as big of a deal now because I think this is the new scale that they're going with, right? When I looked at the Kenobi and the Return of the Jedi, I think they're hovering around like this exact height, right? So I don't think it's as big a deal now. But again, in the bubble of, when this figure came out, it was huge. It was towering over everything. It just did not look right in the collection. I think also the figure itself has some really weird choices. The robes that he wears, the hem that they put in them, it's like he's wearing curtains. Like they're just these big thick folds on the robe. His boots are really weirdly shaped, and the way that the shin armor fits on them is really terrible. The cape is really, I don't know what the word is, Marco, but it's like plinty. Like when you touch it,
Plenty.
your fingers get caught on it, and it
Oh,
kind of
okay.
like makes those little fabric balls. I don't know what plinty. That's a
Yeah.
yeah. It's just
It's
real.
easily snagged, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really weird fabric, and I don't like it. And also, he has a diaper cod piece, and so
Don't love that, but I think that
don't
that's
love
screen
that at all.
accurate, though, right?
The cod piece, I'm not 100% sure. I think these are screen accuracies, but I think when you compare the other Vaders you can get without going back and paying that exorbitant like post retail price point, I think you're much better off getting like a newer Vader or one of the ones that are in pre-order. Um,
I will just say that this format, the video format, works so much better than you making a post on Facebook and then nitpicking all these little things and then people
oh
just
yeah,
laughing at you.
you
So
would think
we
so.
could actually have a real conversation here.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, the height isn't that big a deal, but I think I've known a few people that have paid that really high retail price or post retail price, and they've been very disappointed. So keep that in mind. I think it's a bit overrated. It is a good figure, but I think there are much better offerings that you can get. Next up, I have any Rogue One style Stormtrooper. I think that the updates that they did to the armor, I think really ruined the look, in my opinion. When I think Stormtrooper, I think that classic janky A New Hope look. They obviously they changed it from A New Hope to Empire, and then from Empire to Return to the Jedi. But when they redid, when Disney recreated all these suits, I think that they lost a little bit of the magic. And I think when you translate some of those changes into figure form, it leads to like a really weird figure. Like I've seen Dean pick up the old A New Hope when I had purchased one. He came over and he was just messing around with it, and I think he got like 3 or 4 like crazy poses, like just not even trying. And with this one, the way that the armor works, the way that the body is, some of the changes that they made, the aesthetics, it just doesn't really look right to me. And when you look at like the body style of the old troopers with that helmet that's a little bit larger, and some of those different, they're not like exactly mirror images, the left and the right side. I think the way that they updated it, I don't like it. Now there are some things that are nice. The sculpting on the gloves with the sort of operator style gloves, I think is pretty nice, and having some of the textured indents for like the microphone grills, I think is pretty cool. But when you look at it compared, like in this photo here, the two middle figures, the Rogue One is a very perfect idealized sculpt, and I don't think that is really, when I close my eyes and think of a Stormtrooper, it is sort of that janky, handmade, lopsided A New Hope style figure.
Yeah,
And
that's tough, right? That comes down to personal preference. I mean,
personal
all this
preference.
stuff does.
Yeah, but again, these are very expensive figures, right? And I think they're a bit overrated. And I wouldn't want anyone to pay that money and be disappointed when, there are other options as well. But
Now,
I
now
think
most Stormtroopers coming out now are based on the Rogue One, right?
correct. Yeah. So anything that is, like I know this isn't super recently, but I know they recently did we talked about it on the reissue, but they did like the Return of the Jedi and the Empire Strikes Back. I believe they had a Stormtrooper for that. Maybe it's just one for both of those movies. But those are more based, I believe, on the A New Hope body style. So the best way to tell is looking at the hands. If they're like a textured leather glove, then that's the new body. And then also the helmets, they have, rather than like a decal for the mic grills or whatever these are on the side of the helmet, it'll be like a sunken in with paint filling it. So that's a good way to identify that. And then also just the general look of it.
So you're also saying they're harder to pose, right? Because I know I've had issues. I've only had kind of this new style Stormtrooper until I got the Han Solo disguise version, which I think is based on the old style, obviously.
Correct, exactly.
And yeah, these new ones are tough, kind of tough to pose. Like the hands want to fall off.
It's just
Everything's kind of stiff on them.
Yeah, it's really stiff, and like the way that they've cut some of the armor pieces, like I just don't feel like they work well, like when everything fits together. I owned 2 of the A New Hopes and one of the Rogue One troopers, and like I said, you could pose the A New Hope one just quickly, and it would look very natural. It felt like a person in a suit. And the Rogue One, I think it's somewhere. It's in a box in storage, because I never was happy with how it posed. I just thought it always looked weird. It looked very stiff. I think I only one time ever got a good pose on it, and even then, if you like really look at it, it's not that great. So,
and I know what some people watching this video are thinking. Zach actually collects Hot Toys, but you've had quite a few Hot Toys pass through your collection. I've had many.
I think I've owned. I want to look at it one day, but I think I've owned probably at least like 60 or 70 different SKUs, and I've owned multiples of some figures, so probably close to like 80 or 90. But I would buy and sell a lot, so my collection, or 1/6 rather, not just Hot Toys, but I would buy and sell a lot. So my collection.
Gotta have more Gandalfs,
Gotta have more Gandalfs. Up next, Dark Side Anakin.
You're coming for everybody today.
Bro,
You're trying to piss everyone off.
Okay, but let me tell you this. I vividly remember Rainer and a few other people that I knew had these figures for sale for like months, right? At like 180. I think even like the day before it sold out on Sideshow, people were getting them for like 150 used. And it's a okay figure, I guess, but it is also a look that is literally one scene in the movie, and I believe his eyes turn this color again when he's already been kind of cut down. I don't understand the hype on this figure. I was around when it was released, and it wasn't that big of a deal, and then it continued to not be a big of a deal until it sold out, and then people went crazy for it.
This one's still kind of a mystery to me. This one predates, when I was in the collecting game, but the fact that I mean, obviously it's died down a bit now with the artisan version and speculation that they'll do a reissue of the Dark Side version himself. But yeah, the fact that it was going crazy when I first got into Hot Toys collecting, and then
this
you hear
was
the
an
stories
all-time
about
grail at one point.
Yeah, right, and it's going for crazy money at one point.
Yeah,
and it was sitting around not that long ago as well.
Yeah, and you know, the market obviously has cooled down a bit. You know, there are some people that still are going to pay that premium to have these yellow eyes, but um, I just never really understood the hype for this one. And you know, I remember vividly there was my grandfather was in hospice, and I was leaving, and I had just started getting all these texts. We were doing CW at this time, and people were like freaking out that Sideshow canceled their payment plan orders. And as soon as that happened, the value just like skyrocketed.
Oh wow,
People
okay.
were like clamoring because I guess they had overcommitted, or you know, they have like return stock that they have to pull from. I imagine they pull from new figures, but yeah, people were very upset, and it, you know, for years it was just way up there. But I never really understood it, to be honest.
This manufactured scarcity, people that thought they were going to get it and then now they've got to overpay. Now I kind of understand how that it could have a snowball effect, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Here we go. The next one is the DX9. Now, Marco, I collect these figures because I like them to be accurate. I like them to at least be the best version that they can be of that character for that company. I would say for a while, but I would like a year would be fine for me, right? Like if they give me a year and the next year they're like, okay, we're gonna do something else. Okay, sure. Now, when this figure was released and was in the process of releasing for us in the United States, Hot Toys announced the Armory, and immediately they're like, "Oh, hey, check out our more accurate and newly developed batsuit and cowl with more movie
Next to
accurate
your shitty
details."
version.
Next to the shitty version you just got or may not even have gotten yet. And I think it really ruined the DX9. I think immediately overnight it became obsolete. I think it's a good figure, but when people can't enjoy a figure for, you know, some people hadn't even gotten it yet, and it's already a superior version out, you got to feel bad for those people.
No doubt about it. You know, I'm going to go the other way with this one though, because I've got the DX19 still in the collection. Beautiful figure, honestly.
Oh, it's an
I'm not,
amazing figure. I want one bad, but
oh, bro.
the
Well,
fact that it was
now's the time to strike.
immediately, yeah, it was immediately one upped by Hot Toys. It's like, okay, well,
Yeah,
there's that. So
no doubt about it. Yeah, no. So, but even with this armory version, which I do plan to get this armory, I
mhm.
still do want that J&D armory, but that's a conversation for another time.
How
Um,
big is your pocketbook?
Yeah, I know. I don't think that deep, honestly. I'm gonna have to sell a few things that I don't want to part with. But yeah, no, I think that the two could live in your collection. Honestly, I think you could have the suit in the armory. You could take the DX19, put that in the armory. I think there's enough. If
Yeah.
you really, really love this film, if you love this character, enough ways to make it work. But
Oh yeah,
it is
100%.
kind of a dirty move anytime Hot Toys kind of
Sneaky
says like,
stuff.
"Hey, this other version you've got."
Yeah, it's not like new content came out that you know. It's like, hey, we've had these files and assets for years, 10 years already, but yeah, we're gonna just make it better. It just feels really underhanded. So, don't love that, and I think it's underrated because of it. And I think I'm on my last one, and this one I think is all of these I think are incredibly controversial, and I'm not doing that to like create outrage.
You're a hype beast. I already
Yeah,
know it.
but Marco, my number one most overhyped Hot Toys. Would you like to guess?
Okay, let's see. I'm gonna think through this.
He hasn't seen the
Oh
list, so
man, it's gonna be a Spider-Man. It's definitely gonna be comic Spider-Man. I gotta say, you just got it in.
okay,
You
okay.
paid the pretty penny, and you're gonna say
I will
it's not
say
worth it.
honorable mention. That's actually not a bad
How
guess.
is that not on the list? This is
It's not on the
wild.
list. No, because there's even more expensive, the Hulkbuster by Hot Toys.
Whoa. Okay. Okay. You're
Now,
really, really
this
pushing your luck here.
figure is a marvel of engineering. It is a marvel of paint. It is a marvel of scale. The fact that you can get this in a collection is amazing, right? And the problem is the Hulkbuster does so much cool shit in the movie, and this figure is basically relegated to just standing in a museum pose in most people's collections. I think I've seen one person ever have it posed with the arm up, but most people have it in the most boring pose ever, and it's not an inexpensive figure. And it's kind of a shame because, you know, looking at what DLX 30 did, where they gave you a 1/12th version, which I would imagine engineering wise they could scale this up to 6 scale, and they put in so much articulation and so much playability. I mean, it can basically do any pose, it really makes you realize like how little this figure can do by Hot Toys. And I think it's a fine figure. I know it got like kind of a bit of a controversial re-release with the jackhammer arm with some added price point, but I think it's
You've
a
got a
nice figure.
jackhammer arm too, right?
I do. Yeah, it's actually good for a lot of jacking type functions. But yeah, it's a nice figure, but I think it's certainly overhyped. I don't think it's worth $1,000 plus what it's going for on the aftermarket. When it is essentially a giant Titan series Hasbro figure with lots of articulation, but not very functional articulation. So
Yeah,
that is my those are my five. What do you think,
it's a
Marco?
wild inclusion, honestly. But yeah, everything you said about the articulation is kind of what kept me from chasing this one. That and
Yeah,
GG would kill me. But
yeah, you would
yeah,
be dead.
when I first got into the collecting game, spending that much on a figure seemed like incomprehensible. Like I could never do it. And now that we're getting pushed
It's
by
like
all
one
these various
joker now.
companies, it's like, oh yeah, this is this
It's
seems
totally
like
affordable.
semi manageable. But yeah, that posability definitely seems like a big hit. But I've never seen one of these in person. I know that if I saw it in person, I'd be like, damn, I really want to add that because Age
I've
of
seen
Ultron's
one.
an underrated film. Like I love this scene.
Okay,
So yeah, maybe they'll do another reissue with improved articulation.
there you go. Hopefully, I'm not canceled yet in the chat. But let's see what Marco's is. So Marco, the first one we have on the list. Again, these are in no particular order. We have.
Yeah, so this is the Churro Spider-Man, if you will, or Churro Spider-Man. This is the D23 exclusive. Now, I think mine are going to be pretty controversial as well. I'm not saying that this is a bad figure in any way. And in fact, I ended up ordering it from Scott Bradley in the community. And it's a beautiful figure in terms of the design, in terms of the colors, in terms of details that you only see really with the Avengers Campus version of the suit. But at the end of the day, the shoulders kind of bothered me. Like it wasn't super posable. It didn't come with the head sculpt. The accessories were cool. The churro was definitely overrated.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's like I feel like I had better Spider-Man in the homemade suit, in the upgraded suit. I believe is that the Stark suit from Far From Home.
Yeah.
So I think that those are better figures overall, but this one kind of got all that hyped because all the hype because of the exclusivity, which
This was
at the end of the day.
this was where you had to be in person to buy it, right? Like you couldn't order it online.
Exactly. You had to
Oh
be there in
yeah, I
person.
remember
So yeah,
that.
so I think that that attributed to a lot of folks not being able to get their hands on it and paying the secondary market prices.
Yeah.
And very similar to the comic Spider-Man, which you're happy with. It's cool. It's a cool version of the character, but there's other I feel like better Spider-Man that you wouldn't have to pay crazy sums of money for.
Yeah. Also dibs if you sell it. What's next?
So also got the Nightmare Batman. So this is the version I have is from the 2-pack, the Justice League, Black Suit, Superman, Nightmare Batman. I love BVS. That's one of my most interesting comic book films I've ever seen. Is it perfect? Not at all. So I love the Nightmare scene in Justice League. Obviously they bring back some of the stuff, especially at the end. But I will say this figure has a lot of limitations. The stock coat is not particularly great, so I had to swap
Yes.
that out.
Yes.
The weapons and the accessories are very fragile. The gun I broke. I just straight up broke it with
Jesus.
not that much force. But I'm not very gentle with my stuff. Like I said, I just fucked up a few figures just before jumping on here. So the hands are incredibly hard to get on. Um, just overall, like the articulation of the legs is not great because he's got all this stuff on there. I think the colors are just so desaturated as well. Like when you put him on the shelf, he's not a scene stealer for me personally. So getting it in hand. Okay, let me take a step back. When they announced the 2-pack, I was excited for the black suit Superman, but this one was kind of like, whatever. And then once I got it in hand, it's like, oh, it's a better figure than I expected, but definitely didn't live up to the hype of people chasing it and all the stuff that I had heard before they
Yeah.
announced the 2-pack.
This one was again back when it was released, both the Batman and this one they got way fucking hyped. There was God, what is his name? Clipper King. He was one of the OG 1/6 scale YouTubers. He had talked a lot about the Batman, the standard Batman, and I want to say he also did a video on this if I remember correctly. I remember watching the standard Batfleck review quite a bit, but the prices and the availability on that Batman, the first version, I think it was like a $600 figure, and then when this came out, people, again, it shot up quite a bit. So yeah, this one had been a grail for a lot of people for a long time, and interesting that it didn't live up to the hype on the round two.
Yeah, not for me, but I know folks like Ben Thomas loves his. There's still plenty of people that really, really love this figure. For me, it just wasn't a standout in the collection.
Yeah, and it's shocking that Hot Toys didn't fix. Did they change the cape between the first and the second versions, or the same? Are they the same?
They did actually change the coat, and
Okay,
so I think this
or
iteration of the
the
coat's
coat.
better.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, I wanted to upgrade it, and I didn't go with the kit version. I went with the was it Topo, I believe. I'll have
I
to go
believe so.
look at.
Yeah.
Oh no, Daft Toys. Excuse me. It does make a
Oh,
big
that's the one.
difference in
Yeah,
terms.
that's the one that we gave away. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, it definitely takes the figure to the next level. But even then, just it's got its limitations.
There you go. Up next on your list, we have.
Yeah, so this is another tough one, right? I feel like we're gonna get unfriended by a lot of folks after this video drops, but Director Krennic, and this is one that I was, when I first got into the Hot Toys game, listening to a lot of different folks, and they were saying how great this figure was, right? Like Krennic is an all-time grail. He's got, the face sculpt is so spot on. Ben Mendelsohn, it's one that you just really have to have in the collection if you're a Star Wars collector. And so this is one that I ended up chasing. Got it for a pretty reasonable price, honestly, used. And then once I got it in the collection and kind of put him up there, it was just a guy. It was just a guy in a white suit. I get that's the point, right, of the character. But when I had him next to a Batman, next to a Spider-Man, for my collection personally, he wasn't a standout. Now I never got the Death Troopers to put behind him, and I think, in a future iteration with Thrawn, he could look really, really badass. But at the time for my collection, he was just a big letdown, and I ended up reselling him
Yeah.
on eBay, and that was the last time I ever sold a figure because it was such a bad experience on eBay.
Really? What
Yeah,
happened?
the guy gave me negative feedback because he said the shipping cost was too high. I was like, bro, that was calculated by eBay. I had nothing to do with the shipping costs.
Yeah.
And he said, I didn't realize it didn't come with the brown shipper box, which I had put in the description.
What a
So
dingus.
the guy was a dingus, and I reached out to eBay, and they ended up striking the feedback that I got, or the negative
Wow.
review I
Struck
got.
it from the
But
record.
yeah, so yeah, after that I had a really bad taste in my mouth. But yeah, the figure is beautiful. Is this one that you ever had in the collection?
No, I before this came out, because this one was kind of late to the Rogue One line, if I recall. Disney and the Disney Store had a line called the Elite Series, and they were 1/6 scale cloth figures. And myself and a bunch of people were customizing these figures to make like Throns and other Imperial officers, and we had a blast with it. But I don't recall ever displaying it as Krennic. I didn't think that the paint was particularly good, but I'd always wanted a Krennic. I always thought he was an interesting character in Rogue One. This is one, I believe both of our lists, I'm almost certain that I've seen every figure on both of our lists in person. I think this might be the only one that I have never seen in person.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But I always thought it looked cool, but I can see if you don't have the full entourage, like how it can be a little bit of a letdown. So,
Yeah, he
but
just
that's
doesn't
definitely
stand on
interesting. And
his own
especially if you don't have a
particularly
shipper
well.
box, like I could certainly see that
Yeah,
would
that's
take it
gonna
down a peg a little
kill.
bit.
Exactly, that's gonna kill the value of the figure or the enjoyment of the figure.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's one other thing that I wanted to say about this one. Oh, so one of the first times I had some friends over to look at the collection, and they looked at Krennic, and I had already considered moving him along, and they're like, "Why do you have this guy? Like you
Oh
got all these
God.
other badass superheroes. Why do you have this guy?" And then one of my
Goodness.
cousin was like, in 40-Year-Old Virgin, they're like, "Why do you have the $6 million man's boss?" And I was like, "That's actually a perfect comparison." So.
Oh gosh, that's terrible. Well, let's see what else you got on the list that's gonna rile up the chat.
Yeah, so this last one definitely going to be very controversial. I know folks are going to say that I'm a fake Clone Wars fan, but that's Ahsoka Tano from the Clone Wars. Now, again, a lot of my expectations for this character probably plays into how much content I was consuming at the time when I went and picked up this figure. Now, there was so much hype when this pre-order went up. Like, folks were losing their minds, right? Like,
Bro,
look how
people were
good
like,
this
let me
looks.
know when it goes up.
That's right.
Like freaking out.
I think Sideshow, this was kind of like one that transcends even our community. Like, a lot of folks came into the 6 scale game. I know I have friends that had never purchased a Hot Toys before that went and pre-ordered Ahsoka. So this one was incredibly hyped. But at the end of the day, it's just kind of a small, fragile figure. Now the sculpt is nice enough. I think
Yeah.
it came out decently. But the fact that you can
elbows.
never really bend the arms without fear of breaking them, it just kind of is a letdown, right? Because you want to have her in pretty dynamic poses, and she just can't do it for me personally. Like she cannot do the type of poses that I would want. This sounds weird, but yeah. So
Nasty.
I think overall it's just not that great of a figure considering the hype.
Now this is one with the correct me if I'm wrong. The seamless effect, right? Like it's all one piece. Yeah.
So same
And
that you would find with the Rey. I think Shuri has these same arms.
Yeah, and we've seen these. We reported on this, but there was a lot of issues that they were, within weeks or months already developing tears. And I know with the newer Ahsokas that I think they moved to like the jointed designs, and those have been, I would almost say, more terrible for somehow. So
I broke my Ahsoka. I think I mentioned on the show, yeah, the Rosario version is what I'm referencing, right? So I broke one of those arms. So yeah, they haven't gotten her right so far.
Yeah, I hate to see it. Well, I think we have checked all the boxes for the chat. We're gonna lose 10 subscribers from this video, but
at least 10. Come on.
Let us know in the chat what are your 5 most overrated Hot Toys, and if there's any list that you would like us to do, let us know, and we'll see what we can do. Right? We're true content creators now, Marco. We got to give the people what they want.
That's right. That's right. People are going to say, why didn't you mention Gandalf? If anyone dares fucking say the in-art Joker, you actually might be right. That was kind of overhyped, honestly.
Well, to be fair, though, this was the top 5 overrated Hot Toys.
Ah, okay. So there you go. There you go. Well,
yeah, so
I'm not very good at directions. We got to
leave some meat in the bone for the next video. So
there we go for the next one.
Anyways, well, Marco, thanks for joining me. And again, like I said, comment below. We'll reply to all your comments, and if we get any really good ideas, we'll make another video, and we'll make more real content, Marco.
There we go. That's what we can hope to do.
There we go.